fact, I'm a huge Buckeye fan. If you have a nice jersey, I can help you recruit. Please get these ladies paid. We're going to do what we want, and you're going to have no choice but to respect it. So basically, the NCAA was saying you can't benefit off of your athletic reputation, but we can. It's 5 seconds on the clock. Are you going to fold under the pressure, or are you going to rise to the occasion and make a name for yourself? What's up, podcast family, and welcome back to the 5 Seconds on the Clock podcast. I am your host, Brandon Williams, and this is episode 16, and today I will be talking about parity in college basketball. So there is definitely parity in men's basketball, no doubt about that. We've seen teams lose to unranked teams or non-power conference teams all season, and to an extent on the women's side, I think the top 6 teams, any of the top 6 teams, could win it all this year. There is no clear-cut favorite on either the men's or women's side, and that means as fans, we are in for a very interesting March. The madness will be real, and I can't wait for that. So let's start by taking a look at the top 5 on the men's side. At number 1, you have Kansas. You would expect them to be there. They're a blue blood. They do this all the time. Number 2, Gonzaga. Once again, maybe not a historic, blue blood, but here recently, within the past 2 decades, Gonzaga has been consistent and consistently one of the best teams in the country. Number 3, Dayton, a team that we didn't expect at the beginning of the season to be there, to be ranked as high as they are now, but they've had a great season. They have Obi Toppin. You can't deny the success that UD has had this season. Number 4, Baylor, once again, a surprise, but Coach Scott Drew has coached that team up, and they're doing great, and I think they could potentially make a run in the tournament. Number 5, San Diego State, once again, a team nobody saw. If somebody told you they had Dayton, Baylor, or San Diego State in their top 5, not all 3, but just either one of them in their top 5 at this point of the season, they would have been lying. There are a lot of very good teams this year, but I don't see 1 or 2 great teams. So it's a very even playing field. If you just go look at the different conferences, I see a team or multiple teams from different conferences that could compete for a national championship. In the A10, I think Dayton could win it all, and the Flyers might have the National Player of the Year in Obi Toppin. The ACC, they have 3 legit contenders in Louisville, Florida State, and Duke. I think when Duke plays their best ball, it could be one of the best teams in the country, but it's been a rough stretch for them lately. They lost 3 of the last 4, including a 22-point loss at North Carolina State, a 12-point double overtime loss at Wake Forest, and a close 2-point loss versus Virginia this past weekend. Those losses dropped Duke out of the top 10. They're currently ranked number 12 in the new AP poll that just released about 2 hours ago. But Duke does have a chance to redeem that 22-point loss at North Carolina State tonight when they host the Wolfpack on ESPN. So it's part of ESPN's Big Monday. Tune in tonight. Duke takes on North Carolina State, looking to avenge that 22-point loss on the road. Kansas is currently ranked number 1, and Baylor sits at number 4. And I can see both of those teams possibly making a run to the Final Four and representing the Big 12, especially Kansas, because Udoka Azubuike might be the most unstoppable player in college basketball. When he gets that ball down low, he can bang with anybody, and he finishes strong at the rim. To the Big East now. The Big East has 3 very good teams at the top of the standings like Seton Hall, Creighton, and Villanova, but I think Seton Hall has the best chance to make noise in the tournament because they have one of the best players and scorers in the country, and that will be guard Miles Powell, who's averaging over 21 points per game, and he's helped lead Seton Hall to number 9 in the country. Now to the Big Ten, which is probably the deepest conference in college basketball this season. I think Maryland has the best chance to make a championship run out of the Big Ten, but don't sleep on Michigan State, who just beat Maryland on the road this past weekend and is playing some of their best basketball of the season. Now, Iowa might have the National Player of the Year in Luka Garza, and this could play a major factor for the Hawkeyes come tournament time. And if Ohio State can turn it around and play the way they were at the beginning of the season when the team was ranked as high as number 2, the Bucks could be a big, big problem for many teams. But it looks like they've turned the corner and they're playing how they were at the beginning of the season before Big Ten Conference play started. I think the Mountain West Conference champions, San Diego State, can win it all this season. After all, the Aztecs are 28-1 and are looking to carry that regular season success into the postseason. Oregon has the best chance to represent the Pac-12 in the NCAA tournament, and Peyton Pritchard is a National Player of the Year candidate, averaging 20 points and 5 assists per game. Now I know Kentucky has had its ups and downs this season, but John Calipari-led teams are always dangerous and bound to make a deep tournament run come this time of year. UK picked the right time of the season to find its rhythm, and it certainly looks like the Wildcats have figured things out, so the rest of the country needs to watch out for Kentucky. Auburn started off the year red hot before losing some games, but despite those losses, the Tigers are still 24-5, and if Auburn can catch fire again, the Tigers could make another deep tournament run like we saw last season on its way to the Final Four before losing to the eventual national champions in Virginia. And last but not least, Gonzaga, of course, has the best chance to win it all from the West Coast Conference. The Jags are 29-2, ranked number 2 in the country, and are always a threat to win it all come this time of year. Now to my Coach of the Year and National Player of the Year. I'm going with San Diego State head coach Brian Dutcher. The Aztecs are currently 28-1, already won the Mountain West regular season title. Before the season, nobody had them ranked as high as they are now. They're number 5 now, and they were number 4 last week before they had their first loss. But I doubt anybody had a contender coming out of the Mountain West. But look what San Diego State has done this year, and you have to give a lot of credit to Coach Dutcher. Scott Drew is a close second in my mind. Baylor is currently 25-3, even after a tough loss to TCU this past weekend, and they are ranked number 4 in the AP poll. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but listen, nobody expected Baylor to be in the position they are in today. Then you have to include Anthony Grant for the amazing job he's done at Dayton. Grant and this year's team has brought excitement, national attention, and most importantly, winning to this program, which is a very loyal fan base. No matter how the team is doing, there will be 12 to 13,000 fans in UD Arena every single home game. At the beginning of the season, no one, and I mean no one, saw these three teams having the success they are so far. I know each team still has a lot to play for, but regardless of how the season ends for San Diego State, Baylor, or Dayton, all three programs have exceeded expectations. Now to my pick for National Player of the Year. I'm going with Dayton's Obi Toppin. He's averaging 19.8 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, and is shooting 38% from beyond the arc. I think he'll get the nod because he's been one of the most, if not the most entertaining player in the country with all of his high-flying Sports Center top 10 dunks, and he's playing on a winning team. Dayton is currently ranked number 3 in the country, like I said. And while there are other candidates who are definitely worthy, I think the one person that Obi needs to watch out for would be Luka Garza out of Iowa. The big man is averaging 23.7 points per game and 9.8 rebounds per game, and he's also shooting over 30% from three. He's at 35% on the season. Iowa is currently ranked number 18 in the country, and Garza is doing this in arguably the deepest conference in all of college basketball, who some experts are saying could get 10 or maybe 11 teams in the NCAA tournament. Now I want to talk about the best NBA prospect playing in college basketball this year. It's Anthony Edwards. The Georgia guard can flat out score the ball. He attacks the rim, can get hot from three-point range. He's still a work in progress, but the potential is there. You can see it. And even though the talent in this upcoming draft isn't particularly strong, Edwards has separated himself from the field, especially since the initial projected number 1 pick, James Wiseman, was suspended and then decided to withdraw from Memphis to prepare for the draft instead of serving the remainder of his suspension. And I think Anthony Edwards should have the advantage over Wiseman and maybe say someone like LaMelo Ball, who was hurt playing overseas. He should have the advantage over them because he's had the opportunities to show why he should go number 1. I think the lack of superstars has kind of hurt college basketball this season. I mean, there still have been some exciting teams, especially the teams that we haven't expected to be in the positions they are today. We love to see that, especially those fan bases of those teams who aren't always in those positions. But there's no Zion this year, no R.J. Barrett, Ja Morant. Plus, LaMelo Ball and R.J. Hampton elected to go overseas and play basketball this season. James Wiseman didn't even get to play 10 games at Memphis. So besides Anthony Edwards and Cole Anthony, there really aren't any big names in college basketball this season. But that's all for the men's side. Let me switch over to the women's side. Like I did with the men, I'm going to start with the top 5. Number 1, South Carolina. Number 2, Baylor. Number 3, Oregon. Number 4, Stanford. And number 5, Louisville. I could see any one of these 5 teams winning it all, and I would actually throw in UConn, who's ranked number 6, of course, because it's UConn. They have Coach Gino Auriemma, the legend, the man, the myth, the legend. But he always gets his teams ready for postseason basketball, so you have to watch out for UConn as well. Now, let me go to my National Player of the Year and Coach of the Year in women's basketball. This should be easy as far as Player of the Year. It's Sabrina Ionescu, the only player in NCAA history with 2,000 points, 1,000 assists, and 1,000 rebounds. And that is for men or women. What she's done in her 4 years at Oregon is nothing short of spectacular. She has 8 triple-doubles this season, 26 for her career, which is also an NCAA record, men or women. Come on, man. If she would have came out last year and entered the WNBA draft, she would have been the number 1 pick. And when she does come out this year, she will be the number 1 pick. So shout out to Sabrina. She gave a great speech at the Kobe Memorial, and then she flew back to play a game against Stanford that night. It was number 3 Oregon versus number 4 Stanford. She showed up big, had a triple-double, 21, 12, and 12, and Oregon got the victory. That was just a great day for her. I'm sure it was a very stressful, very emotional day, but she did great. She performed great at the Memorial and then performed on the court as she always does. Now to Coach of the Year, Dawn Staley. It has to be her, right? South Carolina's 27-1 and ranked number 1 in the country. They have the best defense in the country. I've seen it in person. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I've watched their games on TV as well this year. That is the best defense in the country. But like I said, I've seen it in person when they came to Dayton to play the Dayton women's basketball team. They swarm to the ball. They have a lot of long wings that can cover the perimeter, and the team blocks the ball as a collective. So be mindful of that if you're trying to drive against South Carolina, because the Gamecocks have an absolutely shut down defense. And I think that's the key for them this season. That's the reason they could win a national title. And Zaya Cook is a straight bucket. When I saw her in person this year versus Dayton, she had 30 points, and it came so seamless. Watch out for her in the tournament. She could have some big games. That is their best offensive player. But the thing you need to be worried about with South Carolina is that defense. Defense wins championships, and South Carolina certainly has the defense to get it done. Now, just like I did with Anthony Edwards, on the men's side, I'm going to talk about the best WNBA prospect on the women's side. Well, I kind of already hinted at this when I was talking about my National Player of the Year. Of course, it's Sabrina Ionescu. I see her as the future of the WNBA alongside Breanna Stewart. She's versatile, like I said, most triple-doubles in NCAA history, men or women, a leader because she came back last year. She could have went as the number 1 pick in the draft. She came back because she has one goal. She wants to win the national championship, and I think Oregon and South Carolina are the 2 favorites. South Carolina because of that defense that I just raved about, and Oregon because of Ionescu. She's a leader. I think it's great that Ionescu came back for her senior season, not only because she has a goal of winning a national title, but because the New York Liberty will have the number 1 pick in the 2020 WNBA draft. The team has a new home. The Liberty will play its home games at the Barclays Center this season. Ionescu will put on a show in Brooklyn. Mark my words now. And I feel like if New York can promote Ionescu in that market, the number 1 market in the world, it could help the women's game immensely because they would have a lot more coverage. You would have the star of the league along with Breanna Stewart. She's still a dog out there in Seattle with the Storm. Just because she missed last season doesn't mean we can forget about her. She was the MVP, regular season and finals MVP the year before. So don't forget about her. But Ionescu is definitely one of the most versatile players, I think, coming out of college that we've ever seen. But I think she could be the face of the league in that New York market, and that could do huge dividends for the women's game. With all that being said, it's March, people. That means March Madness has begun. Teams will be playing its last games of the regular season before it's time for conference tournament week, and then on to Selection Sunday, and on to the NCAA tournament. I'm excited and ready like all college basketball fans, and can't wait to watch men's and women's basketball coming down the stretch. Thank you for tuning in to episode 16 of the 5 Seconds on the Clock podcast. Like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. But I will check back in with y'all soon. Signing off for the 5 Seconds on the Clock podcast, it's your boy, Brandon Williams. Ya dig?